John was working in his science lab, got blasted by gamma rays. Now he's Smash Trivia John, always smashing. He's friends with Ruffalo, in love with Aslan, and also some arrow weaving. John's here saying, hello my gamma friends, welcome to the show, the Gamma Analysis Podcast.
And hold. Smash.
Hello, my Gamma friends. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Smash Trivia John. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram by searching Smash Trivia. I'll be on the big old green head in the profile picture. This is the Gamma Analysis. Basically, I'm going to review everything Hulk, all the movies, TV shows. I also do random other geeky films. Hope you enjoy Smash Trivia Presents the Gamma Analysis. I want to ask everyone listening, please do sign for me. Please share the hell out of this podcast with all your friends. If you don't, Hulk will be angry. Now let's smash right into this episode. Today's episode is a review of the Sin City movies with my friend Brayden. How you doing, Brayden?
I'm doing okay. I'm very excited to talk about Sin City.
Yeah, I do. The side I think it's a funny coincidence. And so I did not plan this to be this case, but so these are very neo noir horror stories. This is going to release the day before Spider-Noir.
That is funny timing. It actually is good timing because we rarely get black and white comic book superhero projects. Where If By Night was probably the most recent live action one for Disney Plus streaming. So this is kind of fitting. And also Sin City 2, A Dame to Kill For came out in 2014. So that. So it's been a while since we had black and white superhero stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. So that's a fun little coincidence. I enjoyed both of these films. They weren't my favorite, but I really enjoyed them. I told you last night, my main criticisms with the first film are there was one plot line that I wasn't a big fan of, and also there was one of the short stories where I was just like, I'm kind of bored watching this, and I think it's weird. You said there's an extended version. I felt like it was going on for a while. Just the normal version.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And this is also, I have a lot of love and respect for these films as comic book films, as films of Robert Rodriguez. In his commentary in the behind the scenes featurette, Robert fought for Frank Miller to get director credit because there's footage of Frank Miller directing the actors on set to match up his artwork, and Robert Rodriguez left the Directors Guild of America to buy and to help secure a director's credit for Frank Miller. Because Robert Rodriguez kept insisting, I am not adapting his book, I am translating it. I love his work, and we're going to do it 100% faithfully. This is one of the first real faithful, really the most faithful comic book adaptation probably out there. And I think that's both a strength and a weakness because Robert loved it too much that he didn't know when to cut out certain things, I think. And he didn't know when to change up certain characteristics. I know what storyline you weren't really a fan of in regards to some stuff. And there were moments where if there was a new Sin City movie now, I think you should change a lot of things. Yeah. Because especially you have this movie, these movies should not work. These are very fun experiments, both with the green screen technology, with the actors, even the fact that, there's some great behind the scenes footage where Robert, admitted, oh yeah, a lot of these actors weren't in the same room together because they couldn't be in the same room. And I did whatever I could to go around certain things, and I had a lot of fun. And you could tell the cast had a lot of fun filming this because it was very experimental, especially the first film. These are very kind of abnormal comic movies if you really think about it, because there are certain comic book movies that are obviously very famous Marvel and DC characters. There are some comic movies about like there are dramas like History of Violence, and this is steeped in being such a direct translation from the pages of the comic that I think if you watch these films, you kind of don't really need to read the book, unless you want to look at the artwork to see how
Mhm.
different it can be from live action to.
I feel
Uh,
like the only reason to read the book would be to see to read like side stories that didn't get adapted.
yeah, 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 and it's interesting because like the first Sin City came out 2005. I watched it on DVD at home. I was like 6 years old, and watching it was a great experience, especially as a kid. But when I was watching it, I was also kind of like, I get why a lot of movies can't do this because I think a lot of people love black and white. They will always have respect for black and white, especially for the way it's used visually in films and TV shows. A black and white R-rated detective noir is very hard to sell. I think
Hmm.
now. Um, like now with Spider-Man Noir, I think that's like that fits because his whole universe is meant to be like that, and he's Spider-Man, so like he has some popularity helping him with that. And with Robert Rodriguez, I think a lot of people love him as a filmmaker. Yeah, especially the various films he's done since the '90s. These films kind of get a little bit overlooked, just a little bit compared to some of his other films, and I
Hmm.
think it's because they can tell the script isn't his. He loves that book. He like apparently even like some people just did their homework about like how often the dialogue is almost exactly the same, and it's very it can never hardly happen again.
Hmm.
I think, and I'm kind of fine with that because I'm
Hmm.
so used to adaptations changing things sometimes for the better or for the worse, but it has to be a movie. You know what I mean? It can't just be a complete 100% copy and paste. I don't think it should always be like that.
Hmm. Yeah, you bring up like the dialogue. That is really interesting to me because as I noticed while I was watching it, the dialogue really does not feel like Robert Rodriguez movies. There's like even though there absolutely is some cursing in it, there's not actually a lot of cursing in these, and it it honestly does feel a lot more like the level of cursing you might get in an older film, like what they're trying to emulate, and versus like most of Rodriguez's films, Machete, From Dusk Till Dawn, they are very cursing heavy, particularly with his R-rated films. Obviously, not with his kids' films. That would be really weird. But his R-rated films, they're usually very cursing heavy. So it really surprised me how little there actually was in these.
Yeah, because like, and also another thing, I mean, people like, I think people in the comic book community do like these films a lot, depending on which film. There are some comic book fans who are kind of like, I have a lot of love and respect for Frank Miller as an artist, as a writer. The Sin City books were hard to read because not because of anything graphic, but because there's some people who are like this dialogue, like this there's constant narration in these books and these constant cutting back and forth between like certain things. It's kind of jarring, I think, because
Mhm.
when people think about detective comic books, whether it be like murder mystery stuff in Batman or even like some other independent detective comic books, there's a sense of realism, there's a sense of normalcy, there's a sense of groundedness. With Sin City, it's with the way the is presented in the book, there's a certain level of uh exaggeration. Like Robert
Mhm.
really did capture the exaggerated feel of a comic book in live action.
Oh yeah.
Marv in the films feel like Marv in the books. Marv feels like a comic book come to life. Like he feel like he's so fun in both films. A lot of the other characters, like in the book, they feel they fit into certain noir stereotypes, noir cliches from certain
Mhm.
old school films that in a modern lens is kind of outdated. You know what I mean? And even Frank Miller, he's a great he was a really great writer, and even he had some issues. Like sometimes his female characters aren't written well because he's a man. He doesn't, like there are certain things he doesn't handle that well. When it comes to handling complicated women or even female villains, he does a
Mhm.
great job. But with the exception of that, he just usually does damsel in distress. Like his work in creating Electro for
Mhm.
Marvel was brilliant. And then when it comes to the male characters he write, they're either vehicles for the action. I think the only times he ever had deep writing for a
Mhm.
male character was for his Batman run and for his Daredevil run. And then after a while, he kind of just fell into making it all about the action. With these
Makes sense.
movies, I think the actors are adding in more subtext
Oh
with the
yeah.
way they're acting. Because in the book, when you're reading it, it's a flat static image. They're not moving their faces. They're not. They're drawn like gorgeous statues in the Frank Miller style. In these movies, I think the casting kind of enhanced what's there, especially for they're not acting in physical sets. They have to guess what's happening around them in a green screen room, and there are moments where they do have chemistry. Like a lot of the actors in this do have great chemistry,
Oh yeah.
and it's still great to watch. I do think you and I were talking about the future of a Sin City adaptation. Now there were rumors of like they may have announced, oh yeah, we're gonna do a TV show one day, or maybe another movie. We'll see. And they said they're gonna do new characters and they're gonna mix up some stuff. There were some moments where I'm like, yeah, we should get a Sin City reboot that goes off course from the comics because
Mhm.
I do want the characters to feel a little bit more real and it'd be a little bit more fun. And there are some things
Yeah.
you should change, I think. Not
Mhm.
as an insult to Frank Miller, but just for the sake of like, no, things should be different. Like adaptations
Mhm.
can't be 100% because when it's 100%, it can be the flaws or the missing subtext can appear. Like I argue, if it wasn't for certain actors, I think these characters would be more flat.
Yeah. Makes sense. And they're definitely not like super three-dimensional
I
characters.
mean, yeah, I mean, like that's
I
the
say
thing. Because
that.
like there are some people who are like, when reading the Sin City book, it's like I think it's intentional because Frank Miller is clearly making fun of certain
Mhm.
things from Detective Noir, but it's also Frank Miller, and he clearly loves certain things a little too much. I think the best part of these films is when the visual style of the film enhances
Mhm.
the artwork or enhances what's being translated. Like the gag with the dinosaur park or
Yeah.
or the color, the use of like reds and
Oh
blues
yeah.
with the black and white.
So.
Like it's a beautiful looking film. Like both films are really beautiful looking. Um, they're also I they're also very different tone wise because I think the first movie is very serious, a little too serious maybe in certain parts. The second movie feels more like a comedy in certain parts. Like they know how to have like more of like an like more of a
Yeah. That's
straightforward
interesting to
action.
me because I actually found the first one to be a bit more humorous, and mainly because of the fact that I found Marv to be humorous, and he's in a lot more of the first film. Versus
Hmm.
in the second film, there's not a lot of characters who are like cracking a lot of jokes.
Oh no, I'm more so talking about like I guess like I don't know, just something about the second film where I feel like it's less depressing than the first one. Like there's a
Mhm.
little bit more hope. There's a little bit more of the good guys
Makes
winning,
sense.
and there's a little bit more of a lighter tone. I don't like it. I don't know why. It's
Makes
something
sense.
about the second film where it feels less because the first one was intentionally downbeat because of where the stories go,
Mhm.
with the exception of the storyline. Except the storylines with Dwight in both films, he has a happy ending. He gets to do good with the women of Old Town. Everyone else mostly suffers something or loses something, except for Nancy. Like Nancy kind of
Mhm.
she gets a better ending in the second film than in the first film. Um, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, I think maybe it's because I felt like the second film had more subtle jokes. Like
Mhm.
like Christopher Maloney, he plays that one cop who falls in love with Eva Green's Ava, and he's so like he's a great actor, but he's so intensely over the top. He's so funny that like he and his partner in the car arguing over Ava. I don't know why that felt so funny to
Yeah,
me.
it's, that was one casting where I felt like it was a misuse of the actor's talents actually, because that to me felt like they were just like, he's a big a cop actor in TV, so we'll cast another cop in this. Versus like, as someone who's seen some of his more crazy work, like Happy, I'm like, you could have made this character a lot more crazy.
Oh yeah,
You could have had a lot more fun with this character.
oh yeah, yeah. I know what you mean.
He's definitely an actor who can handle a crazier character.
mm, oh, yeah, I know what you mean. And also, like, there are certain things where it is funny because like the films are kind of a fun, interesting little puzzle.
Mm.
Because when you read the books, the short stories aren't intact, and I think they're presented in a different order. In the movies, Robert mixed them up for the anthology angle, and you can kind of like when certain dead characters appear in either film, you can be like, okay, this is before they died. This is when this is happening. It can be a little fun Easter egg, I think. Or like, okay, this is whatever. There were moments where I was kind of like, hmm, maybe they should have, because like Robert kept saying in his interviews, he's like, oh no, we're gonna do different things. I didn't want to just choose one story because I felt like choosing one story to represent Sin City overall wouldn't feel right. And I kind of get that. But there were moments where I'm like, yeah, no, you could just have these characters cross over and meet up and just cut out some dead weight. Like, I think an interesting structure with these films that's all really, with the exception of some of the good guys, the Rourke family cements uh certain characters. Like they're such bad people, whether it be we have the pastor Rourke in the first film and his adopted son Kevin. You have, Senator Rourke in both films, and of course Rourke Jr. becomes the yellow bastard in the
Mm-hmm.
first film. So like there's a constant theme, like this family is ruining the city and we gotta get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of solidifies a lot of the stuff. And then there is some subtle stuff with Dwight in the fact that like the henchman with the gold eye,
Mm-hmm.
I forget his name. He's played by Mark Clark Duncan in the
Mm-hmm.
first one. He's played by Dennis Haber in the second film. It's funny how like in the second film you get their origin stories, and then it's all about Eva Green's character Ava. And there were moments where I'm like, huh, this is kind of cool. Like you do get like little rewards for wanting to know more about certain things. And there were moments where I'm like, yeah, Sensei show would be better because with a TV show you have more time, more space. You can actually explain
You
these
could
things better.
have that each story is its own episode.
Yeah, and then it will probably flow a little bit better. Because like with
Mm-hmm.
Sensei, I don't know. Because I've seen some people go back and forth on some of the films. Some people like the first one more. Some people like the second film more. I think what's funny is, with the exception of some actors, you can't really tell the years in between, except for some people. Like
Mm-hmm.
Mickey Rourke, he's an asshole in real life, but in regards to his performance as Marv, he's great.
Mm-hmm.
In the second film, he's bigger. Like not even just like fat, like he is also kind of more jacked in the second film than he is in the first film. That's kind of like, even though that's before his death, Marv's death in the first one, that's kind of a fun little visual thing. Powers Booth was a phenomenal actor, very underrated. I think a lot of comic book fans probably know him more as Gideon Malik in Agents of
Mm-hmm.
Shield, and of course in the first Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of funny because in the first Sensei movie, they actually put makeup on him to make him look older. With they gave him a wig and
Yeah.
some other stuff,
And
and then
mustache.
yeah, and a mustache. And then the second Sensei movie, they were kind of like, "Well, it's been 9 years. You are already old enough. You don't need a wig." Like, so like it's kind of funny. And then and Jessica Alba again, she's aged well. Like was it like she's always looked great. It's actually kind of funny. In the first one, she looks very young, even though I know how old she actually was.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but it makes sense because they're trying to, like, oh, she's 19, her character Nancy. And then the second film, I think she's a little bit older. I don't know how much time has passed. It could be like
I
a few years or so.
it sound to me sounded like if this was supposed to be just like a couple months after the end of
Oh no, yeah, yeah.
her
But there was
character in the
also,
first film,
yeah, but
which
yeah, yeah.
which is so weird because that would mean she's still 19, even though as an actress she now out in 2014 would have been in her 30s.
Yeah, so that's the thing. There was moments where I'm like, I think they're playing it up a little bit, but we'll see. Um, and then like there's a lot of like interesting stuff. And then Clive Owen was supposed to come back for two to do a cameo because the big thing in the book is that Dwight always changes his face. Clive Owen was supposed to come back to film a scene in the last part of the Dwight subplot where Josh Brolin will be replaced by Clive Owen. But Clive Owen was so busy he couldn't do it. So they were just like, okay, Josh, you just be filming this part for it. Um, it's just with these films, I think there are deep themes like in the book. I think there are characters to latch onto. There's a sense
Yeah.
of loss and change and tragedy.
Hmm.
Um,
I
I
think.
think it's better to watch. I mean, because with Nancy, you can argue that she's kind of like the heart of both films.
Hmm.
We see her as a kid, we see her go through a lot of loss, and then we see her take down one of the main villains of this universe in the second film. And and Marv's story is kind of interesting. I think even like his death is
Yeah.
still iconic. I think, but I don't know, it's interesting. I think the thing that kind of stops Sin City from being more mainstream, whether it be the books or the movies, is there's a lot of untapped potential because I feel like Frank Miller killed off some characters way too
Hmm.
soon, and he killed off some of the wrong characters. And
Yeah.
you and I kind of talked about this. There's a supernatural element in the books. They hint towards certain things. Miho is clearly a ninja. Marv has super strength in both versions. Hardigan becomes a ghost after he dies. And now it could be Nancy's hallucinating, but they do imply that he's actually haunting her. And
Oh yeah,
even the
like that's pretty clear because of the fact that he appears to the villain as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like there's even like so there's clearly an abnormal element. So there were and also even with Eva Green's character Ava, there's all this talk about her being mystical or whatever. And that's probably
Hmm.
just the characters just talking things up. But there was a moment where I'm like, if you went full supernatural and had the characters come back to life or did demons or zombies or whatever, I'm not gonna lie, it wouldn't throw off this universe that bad. Because with Sin
Yeah.
City, it's kind of like a hellscape, like it's like a purgatory. Like there's something not right here. And
Hmm.
I've explained this to you and some other friends of mine. If I was to describe Sin City, to me, it's Gotham before Batman shows up. It's Gotham
Hmm.
before Heroes and Hope shows up. But for a TV show or for a future reboot of the series, they need to, I think, break break the barriers on certain things. Because Marv is the mascot of Sin City. People love Marv. Even when people don't like Sin City, the book or the movies, they think about Marv being one of the best
Hmm.
comic book characters, one of the best graphic novel
Yeah.
characters. And yet he dies. So that's kind of an issue. That's why they keep
Yeah.
like he has
When I was watching it, I was like the whole time I was like, I feel like he's about to open his eyes. Eyes. Like
yeah.
I feel like there's about to be a twist if he's gonna open his eyes or something. Like, and I feel like that would fit into the world. World him somehow being able to escape death.
Yeah. And like there's a lot of other things that they could do. And there's also with Sin City, there's a lot of great detail with a lot of the characters. Like, a lot of the characters feel so cool, even if they're not that well developed, not that
Hmm.
deep. And there are moments where like, hmm, I I wish Frank Miller or someone else would let them explore relationships a little bit more. Because Marv is friends with Nancy and Dwight, but they
Yeah,
don't
I
have much
was
screen time.
definitely wondering about like the relationship there. Like you see in the first film, he takes the character to her house. And then in the second film, we hear this line that if anybody messes with Nancy, Marv will beat the hell out of you, basically. Hey, I'm like, but they never actually went in depth on what is their relationship.
Yeah, I think the friendship is a little bit more in the books. I think just a little bit more. But there is also a sense of like it's funny because in the second Sin City movie, he's very much like the helper. Like he helps
Yeah.
Dwight, he helps Nancy. And it's kind of cool, and it's kind of like it is kind of funny where like it's revealed in the second movie he's the one that gives the gold eye to that one henchman. His
Mhm.
eye, I left him alive for you, but I took out his eye when he says that. And there's a moment where like, okay, Marv is clearly the center of this universe, but seemingly his only real story is his story with Goldie at his end, which and it's kind of interesting. But there were moments where I'm like, hmm, I want to know more some of these characters more
Yeah,
before they die.
definitely.
That's why it's
Definitely.
perfect for a TV show. Like even
Oh
like
yeah.
I actually like the fact they brought back Jamie King to cameo as Goldie and as her twin sister Wendy in Sin City 2. When that one scene with Dwight to really show, okay, this is before you die, Goldie. Probably a couple months or maybe a year before you die, if I had to imagine. But there were moments where I'm like, I would love to know about these two sisters more because it's obvious
Oh yeah.
they were close. Gail loved them,
Mhm.
and you know,
I
but I
also,
also,
as I said yesterday, I really want a movie or a TV show that's particularly about the women of Sin City. The like these two films very much like the women are there to be the focus of the man's story and not them getting their own story. Like so, we don't really get to know a lot of these women. And I and as I said last night, I particularly would like the women of Old Town. Something about them. I think it would be so much fun on a story where the stars are these badass prostitutes. It's these badass sex workers. Or it's like because there are not a lot of sadly there are not a lot of stories that are starring sex workers and it's positive. And
yeah,
I think signing where it's this action packed badass thing and starring these people who happen to be prostitutes would be really cool.
no, that would be. And with Frank Miller, I don't even think he's like a okay. This is about Frank Miller. He's very much a interesting man who had a very crazy life, and he grew up like he grew up kind of like around sex workers and around strippers, and he loves them and he loves women in general. So whenever somebody asks him, how come you always fight or creatively go for depicting that? Whether it be, them being naked, them being half naked, them being whatever. And it's kind of like, well, those are the women I grew up with. And also this is comic books. So like there's a sense of like there is a little bit of a fetishistic side in superhero stuff. I never I don't think he's misogynistic, but it's just there are
I,
certain things where I'm like, I think as a man of a certain time, he didn't know like Elektra
I
is
think
his
that
most successful female character, and
what I got from watching these is he likes his stories starring men, but particularly men who care about women a lot.
no, he does love doing that. Like he loves talking about that. I think he just gets a little not obsessed, but he gets more focused on the man a little too much.
Mm-hmm.
There's another
Yeah.
book he did, another comic book he did, 300, which is his tribute to a movie adaptation of the actual story of the 300, like historical fiction.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 300 strong men going out and killing things, killing their enemies, and Leonidas is doing it for his wife. It's weird. It's like Frank Miller. It's like it's he. I think Frank Miller has a lot of love and respect for women.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't always know how to write women. So his
Yeah.
solution, his caveat, is just to really focus on the men more in his comic
Mm-hmm.
books, and it kind of shows throughout some of
Oh
his
yeah.
career. And then with women, it's either they're the damsel, they become a great killer, or they're just really sexy.
Mm-hmm.
But there are good ideas for them that I think could be better explored
Oh yeah.
with a more nuanced take, with a female writer. I would love to see a female writer
Yeah.
tackle certain
I
stories for
would
sensitive.
if I was to have like a movie or a TV show about the women of Old Town, I would definitely want it to be written and directed by women,
Yeah,
not him. But I think that he makes it very important in his story to be like, I these are men who they like. They enjoy women, but they're also not like people who are just objectifying women. They're people who are like I we're if they are people who very much care about the women in their lives. They're people who are like, if you touch these women, you're gonna be beat to shit because you deserve it.
Yeah.
If you treat them badly, you're gonna be beat to shit because you deserve it.
No, no, yeah, that's the thing. Like he loves, and also another thing with Frank Miller, he has this constant. Can I have a question of his like DC stuff? How have you read much of that?
I have not read actually any of his comics. The only thing I've seen with DC is I watched the Dark Knight Returns animated movies.
Okay, so in his Batman books, in the Millerverse, which would be so as for Batman Year One and as for Dark Knight Returns, Selina is a prostitute, like a mistress, and she has a little sidekick named Holly, who's a little like 13-year-old girl, and she's forced to be pimped out. But Selina keeps telling her, "I don't want you to do this. You're too young, whatever." And there's a moment where Bruce Wayne picks a fight with a pedophile in Batman Year One, and Holly stabs him because she's trying to make money, and then Selina gets involved because she's kind of like, "No, I get what this guy was trying to do, but I don't know what he's trying to do because this Bruce Wayne's not Batman yet. He just looks like a crazy guy on the street." And then Selina, she's all about as Catwoman, all about protecting her fellow prostitutes, and that kind of gets carried over into other stuff. And in Dark Knight Returns, it's not really talked about that much, but basically she's still running a brothel where the women are in charge and all the prostitutes are of age and older, and it's all consensual, and they're all have freedom. She doesn't want them to be pimped out by anyone else. Frank has been, I guess, curious. Like he's been focusing on sex worker stories, and he's been trying to fit them in different ways, even in superhero stuff. But he has to hide it a little bit. He has to put it in the background. He always puts it in the
Yeah.
background. And even like there's a lot of women in the old town storyline, in Sin City. They look cool. They look like they have their own life. And even like the fact that in Sin City there's a rule of the women run Old Town. There's only one rule that they can't break. They can't kill cops. So that's why the cops don't disrespect them. And and they're all about like keeping the peace unless things go wrong. So there is a sense
Mhm.
of like prostitution and sex can be empowering if the woman's choice is respected,
Yeah.
and it can lead to a form of like societal change. And then you see that the men of Sin City, like whether it be the heroes or the villains, focus on them a little bit because even like the villains of like there are some villains in Sin City who want to enslave the women. They want to take over Old Town because it's a piece of city that they can't control, and they hate the fact that all these women are in charge of it, and they're obsessed with Gail and her crew. That can be very interesting, especially when that parallels a lot of real life stories with brothels and how a lot of prostitutes had to fight their way to freedom or fight against criminals. For I think I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because Frank Miller was kind of like, I don't think that would sell as a book. He was very much like, I'll put this interesting idea in the lore of this universe off to the side. So it's one of the things where like it's weird. I think he was worried because he was already. I mean, like in theory, like when these books were coming out, he was already kind of pushing it. You know what I mean? He was already kind of pushing the lines of certain things. Uh, I think for a future reboot or like a TV show or movie, you can explore the complexity and nuances of certain things in a better way.
Yeah.
So,
So
so I will say,
one thing in these movies that it's a small thing, but it's something that I definitely wasn't a fan of. It really took me out of it whenever this would happen. Is all of the modern references in it,
mhm.
like the modern cars, credit cards, stuff like that. I'm like, I wanted these films to feel timeless, and so like when they have these modern references of stuff like modern cars and ours, and they had credit cards and stuff like that. I was just like, why? like this should be like a like very 1940s world feel. Why are we having these modern amenities in here?
Yeah, I think that most has to do with Frank Miller because there are many times where even in his books, okay, um, there's okay, Dark Knight Returns is a great book. He did a sequel book called Dark Knight Strikes Again, which was not that good. Like it has a lot of issues. There was a lot of problems with it. Now, the Dark Knight, that's that storyline. It's set in the future, where Batman's an old man. It's at least in like the late 21st century, whatever. Now, Dark Knight Strikes Again, when it was coming out, it was like late 9/11 just happened. So then all of a sudden, Frank Miller felt the need to reference 9/11 in the middle of a Batman book set decades after 9/11 would have happened. And he decided to reference 9/11 by having Superman and Wonder Woman's daughter, Laura, lasering a bunch of buildings by accident, like during a heat of rage. And then he has a bunch of 9/11 stuff in it, like the imagery and them talking about some stuff. And there are some people who are like, this is a book that's meant to be in a timeless dystopian future, and you
Yeah,
deliberately interrupt it by talking about 9/11 now. I get why you wanted to, but
even
this doesn't
it, even if it
doesn't
wasn't in this supposed to be timeless dystopian future, I feel like it's kind of disrespectful to like right after or 9/11 be like, I'm gonna put this in my comic.
well,
I'm
that's the
like,
thing. Like I think and
why
also like
would you do that?
no, and also like I think the only sincere 9/11 related comic was when because a lot of people at Marvel live in New York, and of course a lot of superheroes live in New York, so they did do a Marvel 9/11 book. The only issue people had was there were times where some characters acted out of character, like Magneto and Doctor Doom, who are supervillains who have attacked New York, show up to the World Trade Center to help with the rubble, and they're both sad that this happened. And some people are like, even some comic fans went, no, they wouldn't be sad that this happened. They would just kind of like, good riddance to these filthy, like they don't, they hate
It's like,
me. It's like, so like, it was just, so some people were kind of like, so you made them care about the World Trade Center? I mean, like, I'm fine with everything else. Like
yeah,
Spider-Man swinging with the first responders to the fire. That's cool. But there was a lot of people said the only thing that feels weird is that the supervillains show up to help deal with 9/11, and that feels out of character.
like to me, like it's the base thing though. It's just like spout out disrespect to the like people who had their lives hurt by these tragedies that like being like oh we're just gonna kind of trivialize this by putting the imagery of it
Well,
in a
it's one of
comic
those it's
book
one well
like
it's one of those yeah, but like no, I know what you mean. It's one of those things where like the intent and the impact of the thing doesn't
yeah
match. It
like
doesn't match.
I remember a few years ago there was a movie called The Creator, and it literally used footage from a bombing that happened in the Middle East. And then it CGI'd over the footage to make it be like the buildings that they wanted in the movie. I'm like, that feels so disrespectful to the people whose
Well,
family members died in this bombing.
well, unfortunately, that's also another issue in Hollywood where they do use stock footage of real plane crashes or real bombings as test footage, and then they're supposed to edit it out. But seemingly with that, I think they forgot to edit out in time, and
Yeah.
then they CGI'd over it, and then the news came out. Because I remember when there's this film I love called Project Almanac. It's a found footage time travel film, and there are plane crashes in it. Somebody accidentally used footage of real plane crashes. So someone found out, told the studio, and then they had to go back and CGI over, like remove all the real life footage and then CGI in fictional footage of a fictional plane crash. But there are some people who are like, how the hell did you let that slip by? And it's like, we forgot. I'm like, you forgot?
It,
Like,
it I always like whenever there's some like sign relating to a real life event, I'm always like debating with myself. I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel about this in a film. I'm like, I ended up feeling like I'm okay with it because it was very much on a pro Palestine in sort of way. But I remember when I first watched Superman last year, I was like, I don't know how I feel about the stuff relating to that that's in Superman, and I'm like, I don't like this. It feels a little trivializing putting it into a superhero movie, and like there's also like this aspect of like, is it empowering or is it telling the citizens of Palestine that the only way you can actually fight back is if you had superheroes?
That's the thing. With Superman, and James Gunn, I love that film a lot. I have a lot of respect for James Gunn. It's clearly obvious James was like he had a it's like a power fantasy. He was just really mad at real life events. He was really mad, at Israel killing innocent Palestinians and doing all this terrible stuff. And he was asking himself, if Superman was around now, what would he do? He would get involved. He would get involved and start saving
Mm-hmm.
innocent people. And I think the big theme about that film, Superman, is that with Jarhanpur being the fictional Palestine of the DC universe, there's a commentary where the American superheroes like Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl, they want to be neutral. Kind of like how there are certain American
Mm-hmm.
activists and American, supposedly American liberals who care about natives. They refuse to talk about Palestine because they're so worried about getting
Yeah.
blacklisted or getting whatever. So I felt like James wanted to talk about
Mm-hmm.
Superman has to inspire these other
Oh.
superheroes to give a shit about these places. That was that. Now, of course, there were some other people who were kind of like, "Oh, this is very pro-Palestinian blockbuster. If you know
Mm-hmm.
what you know, what was this
Oh
really
yeah.
about?" However, there was some other people who were kind of like, "It's." There were some other people who were kind of like, maybe he should have cast different actors to be involved with something. Maybe he should cast some. Like, it depends on what you want to talk about. It depends on what
Mm-hmm.
metaphor or thing you're talking about. And but yeah, I get what you mean. Like there were some people who love Superman, who have a lot of love and respect for Palestine, and there were also kind of like people are still dying. This ain't gonna this ain't gonna like fix that. Like like I
It's
mean
like
it's a message of hope.
like it was something where I'm like, on one hand, I love that it pissed off the Zionist. It's, on the other hand, I'm like, but is this actually telling the right message? Of like because I feel like there could be some people in Palestine who would see that and be like, "Are you trying to tell us that there's that our only hope would be if we had real life superheroes?"
Well,
And it's
well, I mean,
just a hard thing.
this, yeah, it's one of those things where, like, I think it's really about change. It's about wanting
Mm-hmm.
to change the world. It's about Superman wanting.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other thing. I think he wanted Clark to talk about something that was real, something that felt real, and people are kind of like, it might date the film, and I'm like, no, because unfortunately, genocide happens too often in real life
Yeah.
because of shitty people. So there's a moment where like there are some things in that movie that might feel timeless and so
Mm-hmm.
inspirational about the idea of wanting to stand up for the right thing. And
And like
it-
Israel's been committing genocide for 80 years. It's not going to
yeah,
stop
yeah,
stop anytime soon.
yeah. I mean, it will be a miracle and a blessing to have one day be able to say that stopped. And I hope one day we can say that. Um, but obviously, it's going to take a while. And there are even other genocides in the world that's happened that no one really knows about. Even the stuff in the Congo,
Yeah.
the stuff all
Sudan.
over it. So like it's just it's one of those things where what comes to writing and entertainment and the superhero genre, or even comics, you can talk about real life stuff. There is responsibilities that the writer
Mm-hmm.
has to acknowledge.
Oh
There's
yeah.
also nothing where a person can just take it the wrong way. Like someone could
Oh
do a
yeah,
sincere
definitely.
story about something and take it the wrong way. I mean, hell, with Frank,
My like feelings about like for stuff like that is like, I think it's very good for superhero stuff to talk about things in general of like genocide is bad, racism is bad, but like but it does sometimes rub me the wrong way when they're like very specific about a certain event, because it almost kind of feels like they're turning that event into entertainment.
Oh,
And
into
so
their exploiting it.
like imagine if Falcon and Winter Soldier, instead of just like being very general about how awful racism, if they were like, we're going to very specifically have that a character has a knee on their neck. That would be side where it would be it feel like it's taking it a little too far.
It depends on. It really depends on the direction. I think it also depends on the sensitivity. Because like, okay, like for example, X-Men '97, they're the attack of Genosha. Um, that's a real life thing in the books, and obviously there are parallels like that in real life. And obviously, with X-Men '97, they deliberately paralleled, um, the attack on Genosha with the equivalent of a gay club shooting in a way. Like the idea of like a place of freedom for oppressed people getting attacked. Now, if someone was offended, like I can get that. But I can also see where some people are kind of like, but this is the story. I
Yeah,
don't feel it doesn't. It's there's a visual language difference of it's a bunch of robots powered by working for bigots doing this terrible thing. It wasn't a Nazi man with a gun. So there's enough of a difference to where I think you can respect
yeah,
real life victims and keep it within the restraints
mm-hmm.
of the fictional universe and storyline.
Yeah,
There is a
exactly.
way to talk about.
Yeah,
There's a way to talk. There's a way to approach metaphors
it's
about real life in a way that doesn't um it doesn't like it doesn't like recreate real life footage in a terrible way. It doesn't,
yeah, it's
it
like
doesn't.
it's good to talk about these things. It's not good to do something that could that would feel disrespectful
Actual
towards
dead
these
people. Yeah,
or its victims of things.
yeah, yeah. And I get what you mean. And it's funny with Sin City. I think, I mean, I think it's weird because things regards around female characters, and obviously there's unfortunately too many. There's a lot of misogynists and incels and so many terrible people who just love to tear down women, whether it be fictional or real. And when it comes to the female characters in Sin City, while some of them again are a little bit underdeveloped because of Frank Miller, uh, obviously you and I we've both seen this. We actually know people who are sex workers. We've seen this on Twitter, in real life, and obviously people who are sex workers get disrespected on, regardless
Mhm.
of context, regardless of certain issues.
Mhm.
With Sin City, it's not a feminist masterpiece in any way, right? Um, I think it's progressive in the idea of a community of women having power over a neighborhood
Yeah.
and fighting back against male oppression. I think it's progressive that way.
Mhm.
Um,
And that women get just to choose what they do with their own
yeah,
bodies.
yeah, 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 right. There is still because Frank Miller is Frank Miller. I mean, I don't even think he's a bad person. Obviously there are some people who kind of like if a woman saw these films and were kind of like rolling their eyes, but of course, like there's a lot of like ass cheeks and this of course it's like this because that's what the male gaze want. Now I don't think it's as bad as like some other films, and I think Rosario Rodriguez, when he frames women a certain way, there are moments he does it because he does check the actresses. He does like,
Mhm.
are you okay with this? Are you fine with this? And there are moments where he doesn't. I don't think he fetishized women a certain way. So when the women are appearing a certain way in the city, he's just trying to match the artwork. He's trying to match certain shots. And you can even argue it's not as horny as some other films. You know what I mean? Like it's not as like in your face about certain things. And there are moments where like, with a Sin City reboot or with a reimagining of some kind, I am curious to see how people would react. Just like because no, you can never really predict a community's feelings. You can never really predict certain things.
Mhm.
But there are moments where I'm like, Because with Sin City, for the most part, it's kind of respected. Like people like this got positive reviews. Even the second film got positive reviews. People love Robert Rodriguez. People have a lot of love and respect for Frank Miller, even if some of his later comic books fell into infamy in regards to certain things. Whether because Frank Miller's not perfect, but when it comes to the female characters and some other stuff, there's not. It's never really been attacked or hated on. I think. I don't think it's one of those things
I,
where some people, or some people kind of they understand this is an R-rated detective, black and white neo noir thing. It has to feel it there's kind of like an escapist feel. It's like a fantasy. Like there is a moment where you're like, it's not real life. It's not meant to be like this, and this. So I can give it a pass on certain things. Like I know a lot of women who love
I
these
think
movies.
though as well, it's very much like there's two main things. One, it's all treated in a positive
Yeah,
light, and two, it feels like the women actually want this. They
yeah.
actually like showing off their bodies, and that I think is the big thing. And there's a very big difference between if a film feels like a woman isn't choosing this themselves versus if it feels like the women are choosing to do this. I feel like with these films, it does feel like all the women and are respected, and they're wanting and if they're showing off their body, it's because they want to.
No, yeah, no, no, exactly. It's kind of like with Robert Rodriguez with he has a close relationship with Sam Hayek, and of course in From Dusk to Dawn, Desperado, she's very sexy. She shows off her body. Robert has done Nudity and Machete and other stuff. He does, and with Robert, obviously we know of directors and writers who get exposed for being kind of a creep. No one has ever really talked about Robert in a bad way. Like even as
Mhm.
professionally, like people are like, oh, he's so fun to work with. He's nice and respectful, and you can clearly tell everyone on the Sin City films had a lot of fun. And it's what's funny? There's a lot of things to respect for. It just in regards to trial and error. Like it's actually kind of an accomplishment that a lot of the shots look good. It's an accomplishment that a lot of the actors look like they knew what they were doing. It
Mm.
is kind of an accomplishment that they adapted the book so much because I am still shocked that he was never tempted to go off book. 'Cause I'm sure Frank would have been fine with it, but he was adamant on trying to test faithfulness from a
Mhm.
comic book to a film, just for the
Yeah.
sake of
I think
translating something.
my feelings about like comic accurateness is in regards to films and TV. I feel like you need to make sure that like the core of the character is accurate. But like story wise, I don't. I'm very okay with adaptations not being accurate to comics. Mainly, and I feel the same way with books. Is because if I have read the comic or I've read the book, I want to be able to watch the movie and still not be able to guess what's coming next.
No, yeah, yeah.
Versus like if you're if you say that this is like actually extremely accurate to how it goes in the comics. So if I were to now go and read the comics, I just know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's kind of like why some people, in regards to Zack Snyder's 300 and Watchmen film. Now, people kind of praise Watchmen for being really faithful. There are changes. There are changes for certain characters. There are changes for some of the aesthetics, and they even change the way the ending happens because that book is hard to adapt. With 300, there's an entire subplot he added with Queen Gorga, a Leonidas' wife played by Lena Headey. So even Zack Snyder, when translating stuff, was kind of like, no, I have to change stuff up. I mean, it can't like it's weird because like people constantly. There's one funny thing that kind of happened, and I don't even mean this as to call out Zack or anything. 300 and Watchmen, well, mostly 300, blew up big for being an adaptation of a Frank Miller comic, for it looking beautiful, for all this green screen stuff. And I'm like, that wouldn't have happened if Sin City didn't also go big too. Like it's funny. Like 300 is more popular than Sin City of the Frank Miller comic books of because 300 kind of have a big impact where there were some people who didn't even know it was a comic book film. They just assumed it was a another version of the 300 story from real life history. They never
Yeah,
they really forget that. And also a funny thing too, that there's some great coincidental timing. You haven't seen 302 yet, right?
I have not seen either of the 300 movies.
So in 302 Rise of an Empire, another Frank Miller comic book movie, which came out in 2014, Eva Green is in it as the villain Artemisia. So in 2014, she was in two Frank Miller comic book movies playing a female villain in both. And it's like there was a moment where I'm like, huh, that's actually kind of rare to be because that wouldn't really happen now.
Mhm.
And with Frank Miller, his impact, obviously his biggest impact is still on Batman and Daredevil and the Wolverine, really, because he did he did a great run with Wolverine in Japan, and he really hammered home that Wolverine is a lost samurai in the Marvel universe, and that's been in some of the films and other stuff. It is, it is. I do kind of wonder if the black and white and if the Macho Man underdeveloped stereotypes of Sin Cities were kind of prevented it from blowing up compared to some of his other works. But like it is kind of interesting. But I still think Sin City deserves a lot of respect just for it being an adaptation. It's one of the few times I think Robert Rodriguez ignored his style to pay tribute to something else,
Yeah,
whether
definitely.
it be to its success or detriment. You know,
Mhm. Oh yeah.
this
Trying to think. What else do I want to talk about these? One thing that I'm surprised because like he's in a lot of odd of Robert Rodriguez films that he wasn't in this is Danny Trejo. I
yeah,
feel like he could fit really well into this world.
yeah, that's the thing. I get what you mean. I agree. I was kind of shocked. These are like one of the few films he did without Danny Trejo, and it's weird because it's like he looked at the book and realized that Danny didn't look like any of the characters from the book. But I'm like, you still could have tried. You could put makeup or give him
I mean,
something.
Mickey Rourke didn't look like the character, but he made him into to Marv anyway.
Yeah, it's one of those things where yeah, because it's very weird. Because I think the only Robert Rodriguez aspect of these films is some of the casting, whether it be Bruce Willis, Jessica Alba, Josh Hartnett, like even like Lady Gaga randomly showing up in Sin City 2. Like these are all actors he was friends with and worked with. Like they're the most real Robert Rodriguez aspect whenever it's not adapted for the book. There were moments where like I was kind of like, hmm, I do kind of wish he was a little not selfish, but like some directors, they're allowed to be indulgent in their style. They're allowed to be who they are. Now, obviously, Quentin Tarantino, he's an annoying motherfucker and he's not a good person. When his films are him, you know it's him, right? With Robert Rodriguez, when his films are like him, you know it's him. It is kind of funny. Like I think the only real Robert Rodriguez aspect of these films is the casting and the green screen use.
Yeah.
Like it is interesting. Like it's because when compared to other comic movies at the time, because the first Sin came out in 2005. In 2005, we also had Beef for Vendetta, Constantine. Um, this is around the same area time as the 2003 Daredevil, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, the Fox X-Men movies, and I remember people being a little blown away because they were kind of like, this is not a traditional comic movie. And it didn't really start a trend, except for maybe allowing 300 to get up off the ground. But like it is kind of interesting. I do wonder and I do hope that Spider-Man Noir instills more inspiration for black and white. Because I remember when Werewolf by Night, when that came out in 2022, people were kind of like, oh man, this is really cool. I hope we get more comic book horror and more comic book stuff like this. I mean, we're kind of getting some more stuff. It's still taking a few years. So
Mhm.
I wonder if Spider-Man Noir will push more style choices in the future.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. Like it kind of really saddens me. Looking back at these films, is the amount of actors who have passed away. They're in
Oh
them,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
and then also also even if they haven't passed away, basically not there anymore with Bruce Willis.
yeah, yeah. It is a time capsule. Like, like Brittany Murphy passed away, Michael Clark Duncan, Bruce Willis, man, like that man. He was in
Mhm.
so many films I watched as a kid, and obviously we knew he was struggling. We found out
Mhm.
later he was struggling with a condition for a long time, and that kind of put his life into retrospect because there were a lot of people who were like, "Oh, so the times he was phoning it in or doing all these bad movies, he was just trying to get money for his retirement, and he just wasn't
Mhm.
mentally and physically well." And you're like,
Yeah,
"Oh, so with his it's it so with his time as hard again in these films." That will put kind of a different touch on it, even like whenever he does pass away. You know, I mean, how
oh
Powers
yeah,
Booth also
like
passed
I was
away a
Powers
couple years ago.
Booth, Powers Booth, Michael Madsen, and
Oh yeah, yeah, he was a great actor. I loved him a lot too.
let's see, there's Roger Hauer. I'm probably
Oh yeah,
mispronouncing the name.
Oh no, yeah, Rutger Hauer. Yeah, he was another great actor too. He's been like a lot of different film stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Uh,
there
uh,
is a
but yeah, there's been so many who have passed away from these. It's like wild to see. Very sad.
yeah, yeah, and it's I do think like it if you're a
Uh,
fan of some of the actors in this, you should watch this for the sake of like, oh hey, they did this, Um,
yeah,
like I
and
remember
like with the second one, there's Ray Liotta.
yeah, fuck, another legend right there who also passed away, but it's gonna be interesting.
Hmm.
I think these films will always be remembered for both obviously in the film legacies of certain actors, but also in comic book movie history. Um, and Robert Rodriguez, he's a great director. People have a lot of love for him. I do kind of wish he got to do more things. He's been kind of busy. Like sometimes he does take a break in between stuff to just relax and chill, which I get. The man has a family, the man has a lot of friends. He can afford to take breaks. I do hope he does another movie like Sin City, even if it's not an
Yeah,
adaptation.
other like a movie like Sin City, the third Machete movie, if that ever comes to pass.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Like,
but with Sin City, if you are curious about Frank Miller comic book movies or comic books, if you're a fan of Robert Rodriguez, or hell, if you're a fan of some of the actors who are in this, go watch it. Cause see what you want about Sin
mhm.
City, whether it be the script or the storytelling in the book. I'm like these actors brought a lot of weight
Oh
to
yeah.
even thin characters. I mean, hell, Rosario Dawson as Gale, she brought a lot of subtext and
Mhm.
nuance to a woman, a female character who was kind of neglected in
Mhm.
certain plot points. Even Clive Owen as Dwight, like even without knowing some of his backstory, in the first Sin City movie, he really did feel like an old school
Mhm.
noir character, you know?
Oh yeah. You know, it's not related to you were saying, but like last time we reviewed a Frank Miller film with The Spirit, we talked about how Frank Miller has a little bit of an obsession with swastikas, and I noticed like even though I think Miho is supposed to be actually a hero, her weapon of choice is a swastika ninja
Okay, so
star.
I can kind of explain that. Okay, so in Asian, I think in Buddhism or in another Asian culture, I might be getting mixed up. There is a symbol that looks like a swastika but it's flipped,
Uh,
and the Nazis stole that and made that their symbol. So Frank Miller wanted to reference the fact that the swastika wasn't a German thing originally; it was an Asian thing, and it's also kind of why, if you notice, that she kills that one skinhead henchman. Remember the guy who gets an arrow in his gut and he gets an arrow through his head? He has a swastika tattoo on his forehead. So it's weird because obviously Frank Miller, he's obsessed with the image of a swastika while hating Nazis. He's obsessed with the fact that it was an Asian symbol stolen by Germans for their Nazi thing. However, if you don't know that historical fact, it is fucking random. Because even as a kid, when I was watching it, I was like 6 years old watching Sin City. I was kind of like, why is there a swastika flying around? But why does she have a swastika throne? Sorry.
No. With these two films, I think my favorite characters from them is probably Marv, are Ava, and Nancy. Are definitely my favorites. What would you say is your favorite characters from the films?
Oh, I obviously Marv's another one. Nancy is a, I think a very, I think she is a kind of relatable character, not just to me, but I think for me and other sexual assault survivors or just people who went through trauma of some kind, and or even there's one thing that with the Nancy and Hard storyline, there are obviously some issues and bad cliches that Frank Miller did. There was one thing I think people can relate to: the idea of falling in love with someone and them dying, and the grief, the
Mhm.
resentment, um, wanting them back. And I am kind of glad that no matter what he did die, because I don't think he was going to take advantage of Nancy. I think he was
Mhm.
creeped out that she fell in love with him. And I think
The
he
thing
was,
is that, like that was a weird situation because like sometimes he acted like he was creeped out. There are other times where like he was very much into that kiss. He said that he was the love of his life. I'm like,
I
that's a. I'm like, it's a little weird, dude. You knew
no,
her
no, no,
as a child.
it also felt like Frank Miller being Frank Miller. 'Cause trust me, if you ever read Frank Miller comic books, he does do like that weird narration where they narrate a thought that's so bizarre because Frank Miller just wanted to write it down. Now, obviously, like it's kind of like with the it's kind of like with the incest joke in The Spirit, when the spirit is narrating, written by Frank Miller, it's kind of like, to say she's there for me, she is my mother and she is my lover. And he's doing it for the rhyme that Frank Miller did in the Spirit movie. But when that was in the trailer for the Spirit movie, people were like, the fuck you want to do with the city? This is wrong. You need therapy.
Oh man.
So like it's just I took it as Frank Miller just not knowing when to stop. Like if someone did a new version of Harkin and Nancy in a new movie, cut out some of this stuff. Like her
Yeah.
falling in love with him, that's whatever, because that's just a crush. She's just trauma. She just went through a lot of trauma. She hasn't been around a real actual relationship. The whole point is that he can't love her. He is meant
Yeah.
to die.
Don't
He is meant to die for her. He
You
sees
don't
her.
need to include him kissing her back. You don't need to include you don't need to include him saying that she's the love of his life. You don't need to include him taking a cold shower to stop himself from having a boner. Like that's he should have had a boner in the first place for someone he knew as a child.
Well, the way I took it, he was in prison too long. He was just horny. Whatever. But it is an issue. And again, it's like there's a lot of like undertones in with Frank Miller in his
Hmm.
books and in the in the Sin City films, where like, okay, either you did this for the shock of it, or you did this without thinking about what this actually means, what these words actually mean, Frank.
Oh,
Because he was kind of an insane, he was kind of a shock jock. Like especially in the 80s and whatever, he constantly did crazy insane shit. Like it's like with Dark Knight Returns in the book and in the film. There's a Nazi with swastika tits, swastikas on her tits, and someone asked Frank, "Why is it there?" And it's like, I wanted to draw it, and they were like, "But Frank, no woman and no actual female Nazi would dress like that." It's like, I know, but it's a comic book. I could draw whatever I want. I'm like, that's the point, Frank. I mean, it's
it's
kind
like
of like,
that's still so weird to be like I wanted to draw swastikas onto titties. I'm like, why? Why did you want to draw that? That
yeah.
is it's a sign you're attracted to, or swastikas attractive to you? That's weird. Um,
Yeah, and then of course there's even like some racial stuff with Frank. I don't think Frank Miller is a I don't think Frank Miller is intentionally racist. There are some books later in the 2000s where he did some stuff like he kind of like he talked about the Iraq War in a terrible way, and he drew some kind of racist stuff. And when someone asked Frank Miller about it, they were like, "Why did you draw it this way?" And it's like, "Well, that's what America wants. They want racism." And it's like, "But you're not helping the cause, Frank. You're not helping things by drawing this, Frank." And he's like, "But I'm not racist. You are." And people are like, "You're fucking old and crazy, Frank." And it's like,
the people call he's like, oh, the people calling you out are racist for
I don't even,
calling you out.
no, I don't even
They
think. Well, Frank,
clearly they don't enjoy it if they're calling you out.
yeah, no, it's just weird. Like with Frank Miller, he's such a overly shock jock person,
Mm-hmm.
and he's kind of like when you like in the interviews, he's just an old guy. He's just a calm, nice old
Mm-hmm.
guy. People like him, people love him, and there are many times where you just reminded, oh yeah, this fucker is really old because he does some wild shit in his books. And with Sin City, some of that wild shit is in here, but just whether it be in the writing or
Yeah.
the direction. Again, I think some people will be uncomfortable. Some people will be like, oh, this is not age well. You know, and it's kind of funny. You can kind of tell when it's not Robert. You know what I mean? Like he really loved this book and was like, "Oh yeah, I'll adapt it, including the flaws," and it does show. But I don't think these are bad movies. I think these are
Mm-hmm.
good movies that were a fun experiment, and
Yeah, definitely.
they're beautiful to look at. They're
Oh
beautiful to
yeah.
explore.
Like the reason like these characters are my favorite characters. So Marv are I mean I feel like it's kind of obvious. He's obvious. He's a fun character. He's kind of a hulking brute.
Yeah.
And also like I like these. I really like that he's a character who like he's very much horny and attracted to women, but he also is someone who's like also someone who's like women should be respected, and we should and anybody who's hurting women deserves to be beat up. I love and then like for like with Nancy and Ava, I love that they are really badass and like they they show off their bodies, but it very much feels like they want to show off their bodies.
Well, I have a question. Have you ever seen Eva Green act in other stuff?
I don't know if I have no. But like they are characters who they're very badass. They like showing off their bodies. And it is sign very much that they are choosing to do that. And then there's also and also like with with Ava, I always love a woman who's unhinged,
Oh no,
and
no, Eva.
also
No,
like
no. I should probably show you some other films that some of the other actors like Eva Green. Because Eva Green, she's a very talented actress. There was some controversy with her. Some I might have missed, but she has played a lot of female villains and has done a lot of nudity, and she's done it in a way where you can tell it's her choice, both as an
yeah,
actor and also the character.
and
And
that's how it should feel always. Is and then like with Nancy, like Nancy, her her getting to be so badass at the end, I love that so much because it's because after everything she's been through, she deserves to be able to get to be badass. She deserves to be able to get to who kill this piece of shit who is behind her behind the sexual assault that she's been through.
yeah, also another thing, with Powers Booth, again, he was always a very great actor.
Oh
There's
yeah.
so many different films to show. His performance as Senator Rourke in both films is still one, in my opinion, one of the most underrated villain performances because his power really is just
Mm-hmm.
talking and representing who he is. And like even that speech he gives in the hospital to Bruce Willis, or even what he says to like some other characters, where I'm like, you do believe that this is a man, a mobster turned senator
Mm-hmm.
who loves being who he is, and while hating so many different people.
Yeah.
And like his dialogue, even like the stuff he gets to say from written by Frank Miller in the comic turned film is classic comic book
Oh yeah.
like evil cheese, and
Mhm.
it's very underrated. And he
You know,
he was very good in these films.
and, two characters we haven't talked about, but those are kind of smaller characters. But I also really enjoyed is both Elijah Wood's character and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. I thought
Oh
they
yeah, they're really
were
good.
a lot of fun. With Elijah Wood's character, even though I don't think he's at all like this character or from Marvel, but the look of his character reminds me so much of the comics version of Wonder Man.
Mm. Oh, I know what you mean, like the little lines on his
The
stuff.
lines
Yeah, I
on
guess.
that, and then his glasses. It looks like what looks like if you were to have a black and white version of the comics Wonder Man, what it would probably look like.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Because and also with Elijah Wood, again, what's funny? Elijah Wood is an actor I think everyone loves and knows for various ways. It would be Lord of
Mm-hmm.
the Rings, some comedy, some drama. Like he's been in so many different things,
Oh yeah.
and you could tell he was having a ball even for like his small scenes in this
Mm-hmm.
film, and it's like he was having a lot of fun. Even Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like that's the thing with I think with Robert Rodriguez, and even with these films, especially with Sin City, he lets the actors treat the film like a play. He lets them add what they want, and he just lets it fill the space. Like there's a lot of like nuances that I think only these actors could have brought. Even if some of them are not fans of his people, but there are moments where like with Mickey Rourke, he's an asshole in real life. This last controversy with him with his performance as Marv, it felt a lot like Ron Perlman as Hellboy, like this
Yeah.
classic comic book feel. I don't get me wrong. I would love to see a new actor play Marv just to see who else can do it.
Do Ron Perlman as Blarb. Yeah. Another small one on from the films that or from the second film I really enjoyed it is Christopher Lloyd.
Oh yeah,
He
he's a
was
fun
great.
cameo. He was a really fun
He's
cameo.
always fun and everything, but like I really enjoyed him being this like back alley doctor. That was fun. Oh yeah, like you paid $40, you're getting $40 worth of surgery.
Oh yeah, yeah, and yeah, and that's the thing. Like if there's also another thing that I think is very underrated about both films is the editing is fantastic. Uh, there's a lot of great stuff with even the music, the way they do scene transitions. Uh, like it's really really good. Like and also, I think with Sin City, especially the first film, it kind of has like that feel of this is a film that editors and people in film school would watch to study green
Yeah.
screen, to study shot composition, to study this, and this. Like I do believe this has inspired more films than people realize. They just haven't realized how because this was kind of really big green screen wise. These and the Star Wars prequels, these really kind of show people, oh, you can film in a green screen world and have it feel like it has a soul of some kind visually.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. And like with these films, there's sometimes where you can absolutely tell that it's a green screen. There are other times where I don't know whether things are green screen or not. And
Mm.
I think that's really cool.
Oh yeah, there are
Or like
moments.
there's scenes that are not green screen that I didn't realize were not green screen in as well. Like I didn't realize as we were watching that the whole bar is like a physical set.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. There are moments.
That surprised me. I seen when we were looking at the behind the scenes footage.
Oh yeah. There are many moments where like it's very much like because even as a kid, I can kind of tell like so far I think the most consistent practical effect is when they're sitting in a car. Like when they're sitting in a car, it's obviously they're in a real car of some kind. And then like even like some of the doorways is CGI, or even some of like when they sometimes they pause in front of something and you think they're standing in front of a wall, and then when you watch the behind the scenes footage, it's like no, they're just standing at X marks the spot on the floor, so they know what not to mess around with. So there's a lot of clever use,
Mhm.
especially with the shadow and so many other things.
One thing, I just thought about the I want to ask about before we end this off is so in the first film, Bruce Willis's character at the very beginning he gets betrayed by his partner.
Mhm.
Isn't it his partner who gets who picks him up from prison 8 years later? I'm like,
It's you know
that
it's
was
the same.
weird.
No. That's in the book. It's the same character. He just feels sorry for Hurricane, and also it's kind of sad because Michael Madison and Bruce Willis, they're really great together. And the way, as he's driving him out of prison, you can tell Michael Madison feels so sorry. Because I think on some level he's like, yeah, I betrayed you. I can't undo what happened to you. And I regret doing this to you. And Bruce Willis is just so alone. And he will always be alone. He was more like, okay, just drive me around and tell me about Eileen. Tell me how my ex-wife is doing. So I think that's the most I think it's arguably a very human scene because I think people can relate to being around someone that hurt you, that betrayed you, and tolerating being around them just for a sake of a moment of sharing peace with someone. So I get what you mean though. It is kind of because even as a kid when I was watching it, I'm like, huh, I wonder why he's here. And then you
And I
just
was
realize
like, that was
he just
weird.
wanted to see him. He just wanted us like that does happen.
It's like
There are
I shot you, but it's been a while, so I want to see you again.
Yeah, but there are people who are like that. There are many times where
God,
I've seen. I mean, hell, there are people who've heard me or heard family who all of
like
a sudden just wanted to talk to them.
true, but like true, but
Of course, there
I
was no
feel like
gun.
with yeah, it's a little different when someone shoots you. So you're at that point you'd be like you'd be. I feel like that should be the absolute end of a relationship between two
Oh no,
people,
I
the
did.
people and like I like even if I started feeling bad later, I would be like, okay, but if I go see him, he's probably gonna kill me. Like, why would I
Oh,
take that risk?
there is a subtle moment where Bruce Willis does see him and he does pause, like, "Are you here to kill me?" And then that's when he just tells him, "Get in the car. I want to drive." And then he's probably thinking, "Sure, why not? I've been in prison for 8 years in hell. If I do die now, it's fine. I think because like there was a moment where Bruce was you can kind of tell he's very suicidal and depressed, that he's not taking care of himself, even when he's with someone who shot him, and he's kind of like it's nice to talk to someone who knows the truth. I think that's also another thing. Because remember Bruce Willis' character, he gets framed and he has to admit to things he didn't do. His former friend who shot him, knows the truth. He knows what type of man he is. So I think there was a moment where Bruce Willis is like, at least I could talk to someone who knows who I actually am.
Yeah.
They know I'm not a piece of shit. He doesn't hate me. Not really. And I can at least get information on my ex-wife and how things are going. So I took it also as like he's trying to turn spending time with him into a positive. And I think also, again, they do capture that feeling of it's uncomfortable. Like you can tell how you can.
Also, and also with that storyline, another thing that was a little weird to me is like, so we get the reveal that they didn't actually capture Nancy. They're luring him out to try and find Nancy. That doesn't explain though why Nancy stopped sending letters.
Oh no, they so basically it's more established in the book. I think this might be in the extended cut. The Yellow Bastard did say at one point, I told him to stop sending you the letters because I want to see how you would take it.
Oh,
Because the
so
second,
that at the jail they just stopped giving them to him. Okay.
yeah. So it's because the Yellow Bastard, as you can tell, he was in a coma for a while. Then his father did all that experiments on him. He didn't start messing with Hart again until 2 months ago. Where that's when, like, remember, he said, like, the letter stopped around 2 months ago, and then all of a sudden I woke up and I saw him in my cell. So it's like he couldn't keep away. Because I think, because remember, his father, Senator Rourke, he said, I want to keep you alive and I want to punish you for a long, long time. When the Yellow Bastard found out, he's like, wait, this person who's sending him letters has to be Nancy. It has to be the girl I didn't do this. Like that, that I tried to do all these terrible things 2 years ago. He's like, fuck it. I want to mess with him and I want to mess with her. So like
Mhm.
after 8 years, during the 2 months is when he started his
Mhm.
plan.
So,
And
but also, what actually like was that happened to him that turned him yellow? It
oh,
sounded like they were saying that it was some kind of surgery that was supposed to make it so he could have kids again.
it basically it's Frank Miller kind of hand waving it, but the implication I got from what I remember is okay, they had to regrow an ear and they had to give him a prosthetic of some kind, prosthetic penis and some other stuff. I think it was meant to boost his fertility after his testicles were shot. And I think because they also Frank also Bruce Willis character Harden, he keeps saying it smells like it smells bad. There are moments where I wondered if he's still pumping chemicals into his body that makes him
Maybe.
so yellow. Because even obviously, he's glowing because of the makeup for
Mhm.
this for the green screen black and white process. In the book, he looks abnormally yellow. Now, people can turn yellow if their
Yeah,
liver is
like
affected, like
jaundice.
jaundice. Yeah. So there was a moment where I'm like, is this just really bad jaundice? But they really talk about how his blood smells too.
Yeah,
So that means the chemical that's in his body is on such a massive, like, he's so potent with this scientific liquid that
mhm.
he is emitting this awful smell constantly. So it's like he's probably like people get dehydrated. He's probably the opposite. He's
Mhm.
so filled with this fake liquid. It,
Okay. Like it's funny when I first saw him, I was just like, "The fuck is going on?"
no
This
when
feels so out of nowhere. This yellow character is this supposed to be the devil or something?
oh no, that's the thing. As a kid, obviously freaked me out, and also the makeup is so good
Mhm.
that you do because Nick Saul plays the Yellow Bastard. He is unrecognizable in that makeup until he starts talking. So that's why, like, when he's in the motel and he says, "You know who I am, Hargan? You recognize my voice," and I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like that's when it sinks in that, oh, this is him. But before that point, when you first see him in the cell and him at the bar, I just assumed he was a hitman, like a bizarre hitman that
Yeah.
was hired by Mr. Rourke to just saddle to get rid of Nancy. But like, but then you find out it's Rourke Jr. and like, oh, but it's so very like unsettling makeup. Like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The makeup in these films are so good. Like Mickey Rourke is really very much unrecognizable
oh yeah,
as Marv. Yeah, if I hadn't known it was Mickey Rourke playing him, I would not have known who was playing that character.
oh yeah. I think there's a lot of people because Mickey Rourke was like more famous in the 80s and 90s, and he kind of went away for a bit. And when you look at Mickey Rourke, even back then, to that makeup is like he's wearing a mask. It's very good underrated
Yeah,
makeup.
even his voice doesn't sound like Mickey Rourke.
Well, yeah. You would assume. I know there were times you thought he was like Ron Perlman, just the way he sounded. Um, there was even like a lot of people were like there are a lot of actors who can sound like this, but it's very unique.
Oh
I
yeah,
think.
I think as I said, like if we were to get like a remake or a reboot thing, And Ron Perlman or Dolph Lundgren would be perfect for this role.
Oh yeah, I agree, and I do hope we get more Sin City adaptations in the
Mhm.
future. Because in the books are very much like this is what the short story is, and this is what happens.
Mhm.
In a TV show or a movie, I think they need to embrace change things up for fun. Because like you had these
Yeah.
films, they're very faithful, and we should try something else with a
Yeah.
different style.
Try an original story within the style.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
original story that just happens to be set in, I think it's actually technically called Basin City instead of actual Sin City. Hey,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, just like original story, but it's set in this city. You can have these characters appear here as all a part of one story, and you can also have some new characters as well. I think there's a lot of fun that could be had with the upcoming TV show if it ever ends up actually coming out.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it will definitely happen, especially when like even with a lot of crazy stuff happening in Hollywood, and things take time. Comic book adaptations will always have a place
Oh yeah.
in entertainment, and Sin City has to come back. I think. Yeah, I think it will come back
Hmm.
with the right director or right.
Now, which of the streaming services do you think would actually this fit the most for the TV show? Since they
Leg-
haven't said where it's going to be going.
well, because Legendary Studios got the rights. Legendary has a deal with Netflix, I think, and stuff like HBO. It depends on some other stuff. It should be a show for like Netflix, or honestly, I if you were to think about like a network mainstream cable thing, I'm like, ooh, HBO or Showtime or Stars, because you need something to handle
I could
the
I
blood and
could
nudity and
see
action.
the I could see signing like Prime to picking it up.
Oh yeah,
I think with now the boys always having ended, they're probably looking for what's gonna be their next big comic adaptation that is very crazy, a very R-rated, a blood, sex, and like and stylized eyes. I bet they're looking for something like that right now. So I could definitely see Amazon Prime being like we should scoop this up, and especially if Spider Noir does well.
yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that leading to them being like, well, hey, we made one black and white comic book project, let's make another now. Just we
Mhm.
if it hits big, which should probably work. Spider Noir looks like a lot of
Oh
fun.
yeah,
I think a lot of the other reviews are already positive, and people are excited for it. So like, yeah, I think I could see the producers of Spider-Man Noir maybe being consulted on for a Sin City adaptation in the future,
Mhm.
if whenever the rights go over.
Like speaking of Spider Noir, I'm another actor. I'm surprised isn't in the Sin City franchise because he feels like he would fit so well. It's Nicolas Cage. Like
Yeah,
he would be so perfect in this world.
oh yeah, I get that. Like he would fit. Like there are a lot of actors I do want to see in a Sin City project for sure, and he's definitely one of
Like say yeah, for like a reboot sort of thing. If like they were to have Senator Rourke again, and I could see Nicolas Cage being the actor they choose for him.
them. That would be a good pick.
Now that Nicolas Cage is older.
Yeah, that would be a good pick. That would really work a lot, I think.
So, I think that's about everything to talk about with these two movies. Is there any final words you'd like to say before I end this off?
Sin City are very underrated comic movies. I think people do talk about them. I think people are aware about them. If you're interested in comic book movies that are different from the superhero genre, or if you interested in Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller and in black and white film, go watch Sin City. I think it was more fun if you watch it with a friend, There's a lot of great, interesting ideas. There's a lot of the acting in these films are very underrated, and I think they bring a lot of weight to even when the characters feel a little background for certain things. There's a
Mhm.
lot of fun detail, and it is beautiful to look at both films. And to go, it's a lot of fun, and I think people will like it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, uh, thank you, Brayden, for coming on.
Mhm. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening. If you like this analysis, please give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these two movies, so please let me know. If you'd like to listen to more from me, please subscribe. Many more game analysis from me coming, so keep on the lookout. This again is your host, Master John, signing off.